Greetings, good evening. Let me get this adjusted here real good. All right. So, Tarot Prime Light Armory live here. It's me, Damon Honeycutt, General Sun. I'm going to talk about some performance and choreography tips and hacks to help you in performance and with performance. I see some people are just showing up. One person's here. We'll wait a little while, see if some late scragglers come, and then go to work. As with all my, hello Jody, awesome, welcome, good to see you again. As with all things when I'm going, tips and hacks, yes. I'm such a bad speller, I was worried that I was going to put trips and lacks or something. Hello, Anonymous. Awesome. Cool. As I usually do things, I got a list of things to go through. However, if people... Sorry, glasses. Hey, Ernie. Awesome. Hello. If any of you want to chime in with something or you have questions, this is funny. Lucky for me. Let me grab my tea. So if anything comes to mind, just ask it. Hello, Roberto. All right. We're at 8, which is awesome. Cool. Well, yeah, I just have to say again, I'm really thankful for Tarot Prime Light Armory for hosting this, and Anonymous and the rest of the council for all of us putting our time in and doing it. Hello, Harley. Rad. And it's just really great. I think it's just been wonderful for the whole Saber community, and I know I, as a facilitator, is getting a lot out of it, and I know our conversations about its success, we feel really great, and thank you all for coming. So it looks like we're pretty good, so why don't we get rolling? So this is my bit on performance and choreography tips and hacks. And what does that mean? That means things to prepare you to perform. It also means things to help you in performance if things go awry. It also means tools to address that you get into what my dad would call, my dad's a visual artist, artistic discontent, where maybe you're running around and the same, the rat race in your head all the time, same thing. And just a little bit of tools all around to help us with that. The first real big one is always show up with what you can do. Do rehearsal with your ideas. Know what you can do. Hello, Becky. And also be really open to what is difficult. Not necessarily what you can't do, right? Because through training, one can always achieve something more. But also be open to what's difficult and what can be learned. I hear Birdie. Oh yeah, I have a motorcycle too. I have the window open because it's kind of nice out. Wow, microphone's that good, huh? Sweet. Yeah, really do what you can do. Show up with what you can do. And that will also make you more confident in being okay with what's difficult or uncomfortable in the process of creating choreography. Like maybe you're really good at kicks or something, you're like really flexible, and your kicks just have always come effortlessly, but you really don't like getting thrown. So it's good to know those things, both can, one helps the other. Strength helps the learning of other techniques. So do what you can do. And on top of that, the thing that follows after that is always show your best, even if it's simple. Like the worst, I don't want to sound overly critical. However, one thing that's always, I think, maybe difficult to see is an advanced technique performed poorly, because it leaves everybody uncomfortable. One, the person performing it is uncomfortable unless they're complete delusion about their ability. And also, the audience is uncomfortable because they know, like, wow, that just doesn't quite feel right. And unless, you know, you are creating attention purposely, which is a completely different thing. You know, better to, what did I say? Better to, yeah, an advanced move performed bad is way worse than a simple or basic move performed masterfully. So that's like super, super important. And if you need some visual representation of this, I really suggest you watch some Akira Kurosawa and watch some of the, I think it's the end of Sanjuro and also the end of Yojimbo. Just the simplicity of those engagements and how masterful they are, and how in that simplicity you can achieve a lot. Cool. Well, oftentimes when people show up with a lot of techniques, I found that they want to try to build a Sistine Chapel overnight, right? So you have this kind of masterpiece in mind. Well, the masterpiece complex is the first step in what I call resistance, where it'll just push back against you because you're working towards something that's unachievable. Small steps. It's okay to have goals, and it's okay to feel the pressure of those goals. Absolutely. And we all go through the masterpiece complex, and that's natural, and you should go through it. Just know that there is and there needs to be a process, and you have to follow that process through its end, and trust that. Part of doing that is taking small steps in choreography. Don't worry about creating the opus magnus of things, you know, like you don't need to write dun, 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 dun. You don't need to write that first off. That's not going to happen. And nor should one think that they have to. And I think that is a thing that's difficult, is that there's a lot of pressure put on performers, and there's a lot of pressure put on people to brand things and create things and to give it something sometimes before it's ready, and then it can appear half-baked. And when things are half-baked, they only last half as long, usually. So it's good to take your time and temper it like you would with a blade. In your small steps in choreography, do sketches and critique with mindfulness and lack of preciousness. And what I mean by that is when you do a set, like record, sit back, if you have the time to do it, sit back and watch. Be mindful of how you present what it is that you like and what you want to see change. It's not necessarily a dislike. When people say, wow, I really don't like that, it's really that they want to do something different, usually I've found. It's, oh wow, that looks bad. Well, okay, great, that's cool, but why? Is it because their arms short, or like, is there, you know, like this is weird? Is it because they're overextended? Is it because they have their mouth open when they're striking? Or are they going like, it happens more than you realize. So it's like, you know, things like that are important. And when you do your critiques, hey, Justin, when you do your critiques, and I use the word critique and not criticism, because a criticism would be like, oh, well, that sucks. Well, that's really unhelpful. And it's valid to feel that, and even to be frustrated at it in yourself or whatever. However, take that sucks and turn it into like, well, how can we make it work? And that comes down to the idea of, in creating things, you want to try to avoid the word no. And what I mean by that is, as soon as no happens, it's like you stop. And stopping is different than stillness. When you're still on stage, you're still moving because you're commanding something, but when you stop, it's like dead weight. It's like if you ever watch really good improvers, comedian improvers, it's like they're never gonna say no. It's like a double negative. If one of them says no, that's it, done. So it's always a yes, and yes is motion and engagement, even if it's uncomfortable, because something will come out of the process. You gotta trust in that process. Like I'm doing these like strange little neuro-linguistic programming things. Cool. The next thing I have on here is have safety backups in live performance. And well, what does that mean? Have a little bit of a contingency plan, even if you just talk about it if someone drops their saber. Maybe you have a bit of dialogue that you throw in, or maybe you have like a little circling thing that you do, or just talk about it. Don't jinx it, just talk about it. Another thing is having safety backups in live performances. Know your venue as much as possible before you can perform. Sometimes that's not always the case. You can walk into a place cold, or it's cold meaning that it's like just right there, or it's not what you expected. Like many times when I was performing as a dancer, we would get to a theater and the stage was raked more, and a raked stage is a slanted stage. Now, could you imagine everything you do with lightsaber performance on like a 7 to 11 degree angle? Like, we're talking like, 15, 20 feet, like at an angle like that's it feels very strange, and it gets a little bit used to. And so you'd have to kind of prepare for that, and you have to go through it. When you have a lot of time, you can really run things into place and feel it and change things and mold it to whatever venue you're at. Because sometimes the dimensions aren't right. Maybe you practiced in your training hall and you have 40 feet by 40 feet of empty space, and you get to the venue and it's 12 feet by 12 feet on a raised stage made out of aluminum with plywood over it that hasn't been taped down or put marley on or anything. And then you got to make a choice if it's safe or not. And then you have to wow, I guess I'm not going to do that roll I thought because it's going to break my arm or something. Those things kind of happen. So it's good to be able to have a gambit of tools to be able to change things, yet still keep the integrity of your artistic presentation. Run things at a slower pace if you're unsure about your footing or you're unsure of the stage integrity, right? So I was talking about those aluminum stages, and you see those a lot like at Comic-Cons and stuff. They put up these and they can feel really rickety. And so, and they're strong and they're solid, and the people who install them, 95% of the time know what they're doing, and because they're tech people, and they take pride in doing it correctly. You would hope, and I hope, and I know many of them, and they do take pride in that. So you can trust that, and it's important that you do trust that. However, you don't want to blindly go into it and something unexpected happened and it freak you out, not because it's actually not secure, but only because you haven't explored it fully. And what I mean is really walk around the space, run things slowly, feel like, oh wow, well this one feels a little different because the concrete underneath it maybe there's subtle things that can throw you off, rather than like, wow, we got this great choreography, now let's just get up there and do it. It takes a lot of training to be able to just throw something together in your living room per se, then go to a place you've never been before and perform it straight out. That's a lot. It would be stressful for me to even do that. And especially when you're dealing with fight choreography, because you have to really trust the other person. I can think of maybe 2 or 3 people that I could really feel comfortable doing that with. And yeah. So, footing. Yes, always have an empty cup. Also, if you're running out of time, it's always good to kind of speed talk your choreography. like, okay, I go over here, I do this strike, I do this strike, and then like kind of mark it on stage as you run around and talk it out loud. That actually helps you realize where your things stop. Where like if you're running it and then you're like, oh my God, what do I have next? Oh, right? If you're saying like, I do this down strike, I do this lateral cut, I do this thrust, I do this up twirl, I do this, and you're both talking it out loud. It's not like you're trying to dialogue back and forth, but you're talking it out loud for yourselves as you're doing it with your partners or your other artists. That can be very helpful in helping you know where your glitches are, right? It's like, oh, I always forget that. Hey, Anthony, awesome. And if you can, since we're in the digital era and we're not burning film, dude. Okay, excellent, Jody. Yes, let's get the spike marks. Yes, 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 very good. Record, 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 record. We have drives, we have everything, record, 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 record. Even if you're not gonna look at it, you're gonna look at it later and go like, wow. You use timers. Okay, so cool. Questions, this is perfect. Okay, do you use duct tape to mark your choreography? If that's what I have available, I use whatever tape the audience will see less. Whether that's black gaff tape, electric tape, specific spike tape that you can buy in the performance world that they use in theater and dance. So yes, especially, but I don't like make long tracks. It's like, it would be like if I rolled into a position in dim light and I needed to see where I was gonna land. And I needed to see that position from off stage because someone is cross rolling or jumping and I have to avoid them. So it's really like the mark, if I use any type of tape, it's a punctuation of start and end. I do not make a track with it unless it's like in complete darkness and we have glow tape or something very strange like that. I've never found the necessary for it, but however I have used, when I was dancing, we used hundreds, and I'm not kidding, hundreds of spike marks for our show, like crazy. And they never got in the way of each other. For some reason, we had different colors for it, and you know, it just becomes like a form. All right, good to see you too, Anthony. So, Jody asks, do you use timers? Now, do you mean like a stopwatch, like do this in 60 seconds? Is that what you mean? There is always time constraints in choreography. However, to pressure test choreography like that before it's ready can be dangerous. So it's, no, I would not. I would not use, no, I wouldn't need to do that because then that becomes, then it takes you out of the, that's an interesting question. Would you use colored tape to mark velocity 1 and velocity 2? That would be like reading the performance as I was doing it. Hopefully by that time, by the time you're ready to perform, velocities and movements and everything are already ingrained in the choreography and you don't need to do that. If you need reminders, extended memory, as I like to say, on the stage, then put marks down for it. That definitely needs to happen, especially if you have like the show that I toured with was, you know, over an hour long, so we put reminders on stage for sure. Until we got to like the 500th performance. So yeah, that can help, especially in the beginning, and if something's absolutely brand new and you're worried about safety. However, I would encourage you not to rely on it because it would be terrible if that was a type of something that enabled a behavior that fought against your memorization of the performance in the choreography. Timing is always good, and if by timing you mean like rhythm, like keeping a rhythm, if you'd be like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, right? Cool, that's good. If you do use rhythm and timing like that, I suggest you really start to understand rhythm and know things like what a hemiola is, or two rhythms against each other, like 1, 2, da, di, da, dum, ba, da, dum, dum, da, 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 you know, really, and then you can vocalize a lot like how hand percussionists do. The strikes can be things. And if you look at a lot of Western fencing manuals, there's a lot of musical terms in tempo and forte, and things like that, all relatable. something, a timeout. Something dropped out. Am I still there? Can someone give me a heads up, please? And I pretty much covered everything I wanted to kind of cover pretty quickly. Is there any other questions? Okay, cool. Is there any other questions that come to mind with people? So cool, thank you, Justin. Awesome, thank you, Jody. So you can see when you really talk about everything that goes into performance and choreography in a real, in a way, not real, in a way that, in a professional way, let me put it that way. When you think of choreography and performance, do you have an itinerary I can show? Cool, thanks, Anthony. Itinerary. Huh. Okay, let's get back to that one, Jody. That's an interesting question. So when you can see why when this goes into the whole thing, con-op. In my work, we say con-op. Okay, Jody, I'm gonna need a little help here because I'm not sure what your work is, and I've never heard a term con-op. Con-operative. I can think of a lot of fun, creative ideas. An itinerary we would have, you mean like from the stage manager? Like, oh, we're doing this here and this here. Oh, concept of operations, right. Okay. Yeah, I mean, everything starts somewhere. I mean, that works just fine. Whatever your medium is, whether you're dance and recording it and looking at it back or using a la notation, or whether you're a composer and writing sketches, I mean, it's whatever works. Again, sorry, my connection's kind of weird tonight. Let me know if I'm still there. Before I got into the itinerary was, I can't remember. In any case, yeah. Anything else about, performance and choreography. So when we look at performance and choreography and everything that goes into it, you can see it's a little irking when other people say, oh, performance martial arts are real. Well, the level of process and effort it takes to really perform is pretty intimidating, actually, when you perform on a very high level. And it's just a different level of stress and a different choice. Doesn't make one any less real or not. Because one person might be able to fight 10 people at once, but then you put them in front of a crowd of thousands that just say one word and they might freeze up. So it's a different level of controlling that fear. The stage also gives a really safe place for people to engage in exploring violence, because it's controlled, it's choreographed, and people know how it's going to end. And so it gives people, maybe, I've seen a lot of people who have suffered traumas or have had a hard time relating to other people in the world. When they come to the stage, they are safe because they're held there, and then they become then something opens up. And that's very important. And oftentimes that has helped people become, in my experience, become better martial artists. Like when I was back in the day in New York, I had a lot of great students at my Kung Fu school that I met in the Jedi world. And they became great martial artists. And maybe when I first met them, they were very timid about sparring or something like that. But then, through doing choreography, through showing up and training, they got past that. And that's natural. It's natural to have a threshold you have to pass through. Some people's threshold, it's getting into the ring Some people's threshold is training under a waterfall or breaking bricks with their head or their hand or something like that. And other people's, it's being on stage. Those are all equally valid thresholds and very, very important. All right, it's 7:24. I'm just going to open it up for questions. Please ask anything. How many enjoy doing performance? Maybe I should ask. And how many enjoy just watching performance? Both are cool. Okay, that's an interesting question. What about the traditional forms like doing a lot of wushu? So, what's my favorite trick for performance? You mean like what I like to demonstrate? Depends on the space. Let me answer the first one from Terra Prime. Right, so wushu, so I'm coming to performance as a professional performing artist, not a competitive forms performer, which is different. So cool. That's great, Jody. I'd like to know what your job is actually, Jody. I have no idea. So I'm not sure, when I think about competitive martial arts and forms, I love their athleticism. And I love that they're formidable in that. They jump high, they run fast, they're twirling those weapons around. Granted, they're kind of like tinfoil, but that's okay. You know, it doesn't demean the dexterity that they have. I think for me, where that hits its limitation is that personal expressiveness is not championed there. Or you have to insert it in a very subtle way. And there's so many regulations about points that it becomes about conforming one's body to a form, right? Like much like, let's say like maybe a very traditional dance form, like really old school ballet. Like really old school Russian or French ballet. I mean, there's stories of people, kids, they learn from young, and when they get a certain age, they look at their hips when they turn puberty, and if they don't have the same turnout, then they're just not going to do it. So I feel that wushu is designed for a very specific body type, and competitive wushu in that regard is designed for a very specific body type, and is also designed around points. And points are a good way to grade things. However, they are not the best tool to reach an authentic form of expression. The next question is, what is your favorite trick in performance? My favorite trick is to be able to walk on stage and do nothing and make the whole audience and the rest of the stage go silent. You know, like Akira. I was more talking about two-person forms rather than competition forms. Those rehearsed sets that are used for teaching, two-person ones, well, I mean, I guess that depends on who's choreographing it, you know? I mean, if it's like a set thing for teaching, I mean, those are cool. Equal proportions. So if you look at it, like can I show that? Not on this phone. Maybe. I don't know. Doing nothing doesn't mean it's doing no thing, not necessarily doing nothing. Yes. Two-person sets are cool. Two-person sets really teach you the mannerism of how to engage with somebody. They teach you distance and timing. And yeah, I mean, they're just another drill. It's like doing pas de deux, or it's like doing partnering work. Okay, you lost me, you had me. So what type of body type does Wushu suit? So if you look at it, a lot of people are pretty equal proportion that do Wushu or like to do certain things, right? So it's like when they kick, their foot comes here, right? Long torso with the same amount of legs, right? And there's something about that, and that's pretty standard. When I look at my teacher, Hu Jinjiang, he is totally built that way. And maybe it's his generation. I mean, other people do Wushu since it's become just not just the government doing things, but those people were chosen, right? It's a good example of doing no thing. So let's say a great example of doing no thing is Star Trek. So let's say you're Captain Picard or any captain, and you're sitting in that chair, and there's all this chaos around you, but everything's focused on you because you know you're the nexus, right? So you command that nexus and wait for that ample time for the chaos to die to make your move, or you interject with your insight to make things happen. Hey, that's so cool. All right, anything else? Ooh, hey, ooh, way. Nothing, something, nothing. These are great questions. They're difficult to answer. Like doing nothing is a difficult thing to answer without sounding contrived. At time, I'll stay a couple extra minutes for questions. I want to do another talk on Thursday. I want to do another Ask the General Anything because people were talking about the Tao of lightsaber and stuff, so I want to kind of focus it around that. The act of not acting, that's hilarious. What's your style? That's awesome. It's like Buto, if you watch the dance, the Buto dance from Japan, right? That's something. That's also a direct political response to World War II, if memory serves. However, its slowness and its stillness is powerful. If you can't do it slow, you can't do it fast. Slow is smooth and smooth is fast. I'm just a Joe. My group needs a crayon and needs to be shown. That's cool. Paint by numbers. So, all right. So, if that's the truth, then here's a couple of good things to look at. Go online and look at Jackie Chan, The Art of Action, or start looking at how he talks about. Cool. How he talks about what action is and how it works. Also, look at drawings and paintings of warriors. I have this great book called The Male Journey Through Japanese Prints. And it talks about everything from being a son, to being a father, to sibling rivalry, to duels, to masculinity when you're against someone else, to femininity in your masculinity. And it's an incredible, but it's a lot of samurai. And they're in these positions and there's this artistic representation of them. And so when that can help you explore, get in touch with how you want to express things on the stage. That's kind of deep. When you're just beginning to choreograph, keep it simple. Do very simple things. If you only know this, then how do you respond to that? Just make a basic shape, plus sign, duck, get out of the way. Start simple. Don't get overly complex too soon. All right, I'm gonna take one more question and then go ahead and sign on off. These are really great questions. And Jody, I never got what your job was. Everybody's just a Joe, right? If I can come from Podunk, Trailer, Trash, Oregon, which is really in Alaska where I came from, man, I was, came from not very much, raised myself in size 10, right? Oh, I'm a secretary, awesome. So management. But anyways, if I can come from Podunk, Oregon, and tour the world as a dancer, all of us can rise up to something that we want to be. And what got me there was the player's handbook, but that's a completely different discussion. Okay, so first Jody's a secretary. So that means that there's a lot of management skills and seeing things and assimilating information. That's very, very important when doing choreography, especially when you're taking notes and you're working with a lot of people. So bring those skills to it. Very good. Fire for me, I've never really been, I've learned physical representations of fire. That looks really hokey. But I never feel comfortable in them. Because for me, it's like where a lot of people will think like earth is the center, I put fire at the center. Like it's like a immutable spirit. So for me, fire is kind of like, are you turning it up? Or are you turning it down? How are you baking? How are you modulating it? It becomes a kind of crucible that other elements react and respond to. Am I boiling the water, steaming the water? Is it off so it's frozen water? That kind of thing. I hope that answers your question, Tessa. That's a really good question. So fire for me me personally is an intention, and I'm sure there's a lot of different interpretations of that. Very good. Well, I'm gonna go ahead and sign off. Thank you all very much. I'll see you Thursday again. Remember, that's going to be a kind of open-ended one. Of course, I'll have a list of things to talk about like I usually do. And I'll have my saber ready to go in my mirror. But if anything comes to mind, either just post something on the Terra Prime Armory page so we can all see it, or if it's something that you want to address more personally, you're welcome, Dessa. If something you want to address more personally, just send me a message. I'm very available. And, it might take me a day to get back to you because I'm dad and I got a family. That's the way it rolls. But, this stuff's very important to me. So people who are, you're welcome. You're all welcome. Sweet. Please, yeah, you can send me some videos. I love seeing videos. You can talk to Desso. Desso sent me a couple things. I've looked at it, and it's been awesome. And, yeah, cool. Thank you, Terra Prime. So thank you, Terra Prime. Thank you, Chad. Thank the council, and thank you all very much. And see you again. See you in a few days. Okay, take care.